without delay, welcome everyone to the Stoughton Public Library. This is our fall concert series, all sponsored by the Stoughton Cultural Council, which is funded by Massachusetts Cultural Council, bringing you lots of great programming. This is the first of 3 concerts with Sultana, and we'll get into that in a minute. In 2 weeks, in this room we have Jumpin' Juba, which is a blues band, which I've heard before. They played in Paxson Park a few years ago, really excellent. And then on October 9th, we have David Polanski, great songs from great movies. So I've known David for 20 years. He played my daughter's 4th birthday party. So he's a very versatile guy. So trumpet and keyboards and great singing. So lots of fun. Those of you that love movies, we have our film program with Frank Mendoza, which is here and on Zoom. It's a tribute to movie memories in New York City. We thought that would be appropriate on Thursday, 9/11. So it'll be great movies like Serpico, King Kong, Breakfast at Tiffany's, etc. So it'll be a lot of fun. Also, we're just starting a Bring Your Own Craft Club, and that's on the 24th from 6 to 8. And then the Energy and Sustainability Committee is sponsoring Ocean with David Attenborough, another movie night, and that's on the 25th. And finally, for folks over 50 who are looking for a job, we've been doing this free online job networking. Pick up a flyer if you're interested. It's experts giving advice and then people networking online. So, without further ado, tonight we have Sultana, and they will be bringing you a journey through the roots of popular music. So here we go with Sultana. Take it away.
Thank you.
Thank you, Josh.
Your microphone?
No, the guitar.
Okay. Yep, you're good.
Ready?
Yep.
1, 2, 3. Hi, thank you for coming out this evening, and thank you to Stoughton Public Library for hosting this show. Thank you also to the Stoughton Cultural Council and to the Mass Cultural Council for supporting this show. This is Ali, I'm John, and we're Sultana. In this show we're going to explore and celebrate the roots of popular music in America through songs. So these are songs about music or musicians, or songs that have a story that helps to tell the story of American popular music. And that's a living story. It's not confined to old songs that have been sung hundreds of times, or old instruments performing those old songs. There's room for new interpretations of old songs and new songs. Maybe songs that we've written to celebrate our history. Throughout history, music was a social experience. That started to change in 1877 when Edison invented the phonograph. The first commercial recordings came out on wax cylinders. Eventually, those were replaced with shellac discs, and those were eventually replaced with vinyl discs. But the idea of recording onto wax stuck, and as the phonograph became more and more a household item, as records became more and more popular, then as radio was introduced, and radio stations started to play music, the experience of music became less dependent on social gatherings, and increasingly an experience that could be had at home, sometimes by oneself. Musicians had to adapt to this in order to ply their trade, and even in order to survive. They had to find a way to have their music pressed into wax. of eastern Tennessee came the sound of a country jamboree. 'Cause a man from Victor was in town, and he was looking for that authentic hillbilly sound. So he put an advertisement in the news, and the Mississippi Brain Band came young with the blues. A family sang by the auto harp rang. Somebody said with a hillbilly twang, Mr. Peter, there's a song you gotta hear, getting sung like they'd sing it around here. It came from a man who was laying down tracks, Mr. Peter. Won't you press it in wax? And from the flatlands of western Tennessee, along the river running down to New Orleans, came songs where life's stories were told, as the church houses rocked and the big wheels rolled. And from Memphis the word got around that a man who ran a studio was looking for the sound that plucked the common thread of how life was led by the blacks and the whites. And then somebody said, Mr. Phillips, there's a song you gotta hear, getting sung with a growl and a sneer. It came from the bluesmen in broken down tracks, Mr. Phillips. Won't you press it in wax? And from the fields came a holler, from the pulpits a shout. From the pews came the blues sung by those down and out. From the cheap joints and jazz clubs and slums came the call, from where cotton grows tall to Carnegie Hall. Mr. Hammond, there's a song you gotta hear, that's bound to keep playing through the years, being sung by someone who might slip through the cracks. Mr. Hammond, won't you press it in wax? Yeah, Mr. Lomax, here's a song you gotta hear, from a way of life that's all but disappeared, being sung by some prisoners with stripes on their backs. Mr. Lomax, won't you press it in wax? It came from a hobo who was walking the tracks. Mr. Lomax, won't you press it in wax? Thank you. And that got my first mistake out of the way for the evening. So now I can play everything perfectly. Correct.
He's kidding.
We'll see about that. So that song mentions 5 individuals, not primarily known for being musicians, who played a big part in shaping the story of American popular music. Ralph Peer, Sam Phillips, John Hammond, and John and Ella Lomax. A lot of people aren't familiar with Ralph Peer. Ralph Peer was a talent scout for Victor Records in the 1920s. In 1927, he took his recording equipment south from New York. He was looking for musicians from the southern Appalachians. Peer had this idea that people living in rural areas would be more likely to buy records from artists who had come from those same areas, who had a lifestyle they could relate to. And it turned out that he was right. In 2 weeks of recording sessions in the town of Bristol, on the border of Virginia and Tennessee, he discovered both the Carter family and Jimmy Rogers, two of the earliest superstars of American popular music. The other four individuals mentioned in that song tend to be more familiar. Sam Phillips, founder of Sun Records, he discovered Howlin' Wolf, whose real name was Chester Burnett. He also discovered Elvis, Johnny Cash, Jerry Lee Lewis, and all those guys. Another one was John Hammond in the song, talent scout and producer. He discovered Count Basie, the big band leader, Billie Holiday, Bob Dylan, Aretha Franklin, and many, many others. And then John and Ellen Lomax, father and son folklorists. They conducted field recordings throughout the South and documented songs in the American oral tradition. Their work gave rise to the commercial genre of folk music that would emerge in the 1940s and 50s. In 1934, the Lomaxes were conducting a field recording at Sugar Land Prison in Texas. And they recorded a prisoner named Ironhead Baker singing a song called St. James Hospital. That song is part of what's known as the Rake Cycle. That's a series of songs that are thought to have evolved out of an 18th century English ballad called The Unfortunate Rake. That song was brought to this country by settlers and immigrants, and over time it evolved. It appeared in Nova Scotia as a ballad called The Bad Girl's Lament. And it appeared in the American West as the cowboy song, Streets of Laredo. What all of the songs of the Rake Cycle have in common is they are all a series of requests from a dying character as to what he or she wants at his or her funeral. Requests like beat the drums slowly, play the fife lowly, or have 6 jolly cowboys carry the coffin. In the Jazz and Blues songbook, that song appears as St. James Infirmary Blues. As I walked out on the streets of Laredo, as I walked out in Laredo one day, I spied a young cowboy, all wrapped in white linen, and cold as the clay. He said, beat the drums slowly, and play the fife low, sing the death march as you carry me along. Take me to the valley and throw the sod on me, for I'm a young cowboy and I know I've done wrong. Oh, I went down to St. James Infirmary just to see my baby there. She was lying on a long white table, so pale, so cold, and so fair. Oh, let her go, oh, let her go, God bless her. Wherever she may be, 'cause she may search this whole wide world all over. But she's never gonna find another man like me. When I die, Lord, won't you lay down my body in my finest suit of clothes and a Stetson hat? Put a $20 gold piece in my watch chain, so so that the boys will all know that I died standing pat. Yeah, and I want 6 craft shooters to be my pallbearers, and I want a chorus girl to sing me a song, and I want a jazz band to play on my hearse wagon. Let him raise hell as I roll along. Let her go, let her go, oh, let her go, let her go. God bless her. Wherever, yeah, wherever she may be, she may search this whole wide world all over. Oh, but she is never gonna find another man like me. Thank you. The unfortunate grape might have found its way into the blues through the cowboy ballad Streets of Laredo. You wouldn't know it from the history books and you wouldn't know it from the Hollywood westerns, but it turns out there were a lot of black cowboys. It's estimated that about 1 in 4 cowboys was of African descent. And it would make sense that those cowboys would have taken singing songs about cowboys that they heard sung by other cowboys, but they would have sung those cowboy songs according to their own musical sensibilities, rooted in the pentatonic scale used in African music. The pentatonic scale has fewer notes in it than the Western scale, which means there's more space between some of the notes, space that can be used for an expressive sliding around on a pitch or bending the notes. Over time, depending on where the emphasis is placed in those spaces and on where it's heard, a song that's in a major key, like Streets of Laredo, could start to be heard as being in a minor key, like St. James Infirmary Blues. And if in fact that's what happened, and St. James Infirmary evolved out of Streets of Laredo, we would expect there to be a song with lyrics similar to Streets of Laredo, but in a minor key. And it turns out that St. James Hospital, sung by Ironhead Baker, and recorded by the Lomaxes in 1934, is such a song. And that song might be the missing link that allowed an 18th century English ballad to be reborn as a blues. If you're ever going down in New Orleans, won't you let me come along to a place I still remember I first heard of in a song. Since then I've been there many times, though only in my dreams, and my heart will always be in New Orleans. Oh, let me wake up down on Basin Street to the sound of Dixieland. Crowds are dancing, tapping feet, snapping fingers, clapping hands. So let me be part of that scene I've seen so often in my dreams. But my heart will always be in New Orleans. soul, big Appalachian folk songs. Dark as West Virginia cold. Now let me be part of that scene I've seen so often in my dreams. For my heart will always beat in New Orleans. Yeah, my heart will always beat in New Orleans. The relationship between New Orleans and jazz is well known. Back in the late 1800s, the forerunners of the blues, the field hollers and spirituals and African songs of the Mississippi Delta region came down the river along with the ragtime music that was popular at the time. In New Orleans, those styles combined with the French music of the native Creole population, the Latin rhythms of nearby Cuba, and the Italian music of the more recent Sicilian immigrants. That formed jazz. The origin of the blues is a bit more muddy. The term blue was used to mean a state of sadness or depression long before it was used to describe a style of music. And there were songs with varying degrees of similarity to what we now call blues before there was a musical style known as blues. The first song to be written and published with blues in the title that also has a musical pattern that's considered characteristic of the blues was called I Got the Blues. Written and published in 1909 by New Orleans musician Anthony Maggio. But that song's not a blues. Nope. It's a ragtime number. And only one part of the song, one movement, has that musical pattern that's considered characteristic of the blues. Maggio claimed to have gotten the title and the melody from an elderly black guitar player. That unknown guitar player might have been playing his own interpretation of an earlier song called I've Got D Blues, written and published in 1901 by Chris Smith and Elmer Bowman. That song is also a ragtime number, but that song doesn't have that musical pattern that's considered characteristic of the blues. So perhaps that musical pattern evolved in the playings of that unknown elderly black guitar player. Or perhaps it came out of how Anthony Maggio heard the playings of that unknown guitar player. The singer Ma Rainey and the composer W.C. Handy both recalled first hearing blues in 1902 and 1903 respectively. And Jelly Roll Morton is known to have composed New Orleans blues and Jelly Roll blues sometime between 1904 and 1910. He didn't publish those songs until years later, so those songs are out of the running for being the first published blues song. But knowing the approximate time he wrote them still gives us a sense that the blues first appeared as a style we now know at some point during those years, between 1902 and 1910. There's a historic site in the Mississippi Delta region called Dockery Farms or Dockery Plantation. Anybody been there? It was a sharecropping plantation where cotton was grown. It was established in the years after the Civil War. But the reason it's a historic site is because of some of the people who live there. Maybe you've heard of some of these guys. Charlie Patton, Willie Brown, Son House, Tommy Johnson, Robert Johnson, Howlin' Wolf, Pop Staples, Honey Boy Edwards, all well-known bluesmen. These bluesmen all lived on or near Dockery around the same time, and they'd have jam sessions going late into the night to entertain the attendants. To put that in perspective, that's kind of like Mozart and Bach and Beethoven all living next door to each other, you know, out in suburbia, and every night they get together and like, hey, let's write a symphony together. Be pretty cool. Anyway, so this is pretty cool. According to legend, Charlie Patton learned to play the guitar from a mysterious figure named Henry Sloan. We don't know anything at all about Henry Sloan. We don't even know for sure if he was a real person. Some historians think they've identified his death certificate, but that could be somebody else named Henry Sloan. Other legends hold that Tommy Johnson and Robert Johnson both learned how to play the guitar by selling their souls to the devil. We'll have to confirm that with the devil when we meet him. And the way things are going, that might not be too long. Not to be dark, pessimistic. This song is called Dockery Farm. The names of the bluesmen are scattered throughout the song in one form or another. Water just went down the wrong way. She said, wait for me on Dockery Farm. That's how I wound up here. Days turned into weeks and months, and now it's been more than a year. But I learned to work the fields, knowing the soul straight from these shoes. On Dockery Plantation, harvesting the blues. Down on Dockery Plantation, you know the work don't ever stop, 'cause it takes a lot of pain to raise that barb and bitter crop. You can hear the pickers moaning, night and day you hear that song. And a hurt don't have a season, 'cause the blues go all year round. Farm, you can talk to Henry Sloan. If you've got nothing left to lose, he'll tell you where to get a loan, and he'll teach you how to pick and how to bottom with your soul. But when you're dealing with the devil, boy, you always wind up in a hole. 'Cause on Dockery Plantation, you can't go anywhere but down. As you work the fields tilled by Charlie Penn and Willie Brown, switchblade knives and broken bottles, those are the tools they had to use to slide beneath the gravel when they harvested the blues. Just like anything that grows, the blues starts out as a seed. Could be loneliness or jealousy, prejudice or need, a cheating lover and a hungry wolf. On that side, you're happy. Those are the staples that you need to get the blues to start growing. And there's a house full of those bad seeds, and they pour out like a flood. And the air is thick as honey, boy, as you toil in the mud. Oh, it tears you up inside as your heart is being pruned. And even Johnson & Johnson won't stop the bleeding from that wound. See, on Dockery Plantation, there's a debt you gotta pay. You gotta ease the pain of others if you wanna leave someday. That means spending a lifetime feeling what it's like to lose. On Dockery Plantation, harvesting the blues. Patton is considered to be the father of the Delta blues. Not much is known about his childhood or his upbringing. Historians agree he probably had some Native American ancestry, and it's been suggested that his rhythms and vocal stylings might have been influenced by American Indian music that he heard as a child on the reservation. So there's a good case to be made that American Indian music also is a component of the blues. Big part of the story of American popular music is the story of immigrants. In the early 1800s, a large number of German, Czech, and Polish immigrants settled in Texas, which was then a part of Mexico. They brought with them their music and their dances and their instruments. And over time, the native Tejano population incorporated those polkas and waltzes and the accordion into their traditional rancheras. That gave rise to a style known as norteño in northern Mexico. It gave rise to conjunto and Tejano music in this country. Lydia Mendoza was one of the pioneers of Tejano music, and she was one of the first popular Spanish language recording artists in this country. Narciso Martinez was an accordion player. He's called the father of conjunto music. He developed a new approach to his instrument that emphasized the melody notes played on his right hand, while his partner in their duo, Santiago Almeida, would hold down the bass and rhythm lines on a double-string baritone guitar called a bajo sexto. Enrique Valentin was the owner of a furniture store in Brownsville, Texas. We don't have a picture of Enrique, so there's a map with a picture of Brownsville, Texas on it. In the early 1930s, a number of record companies started to pursue a similar marketing strategy in rural Texas that Victor Records had in the Appalachians in the 1920s. That is, they operated on the premise that people living in rural Texas would be more inclined to buy records made by rural Texan musicians. Enrique Valentin had a lot of contacts who were musicians, so he was able to serve as a telebroker to the agents from these record labels when they came to southern Texas looking for Tejano and conjunto musicians to record. Now we're going to do a silly song. After we tune. Never thought I'd even be attempting to play a song in this style.
It's like surf music.
Are there any polka experts here? Good. One, two, one, two, one, two, one, two. Lydia went to a station in old San Antonio. She strummed her guitar and sang to a microphone. Played song she played for the people who work on the land, at markets and ranches along the Rio Grande. Enrique talked up a new sound he heard at his furniture store. Narciso played the accordion like no one played it before. Santiago held down the bass line on a bajo sexto. Enrique said this music should be on the radio. And conjuntos played on the air in the taberna. And masking polka de polka in the rancho. From Bohemia and Poland, the settlers came long ago. They brought their music and dances to Texas and Mexico. And the native Tejanos heard them playing those waltzes and polkas and started putting that wompa sound into Mexican folk songs. And conjuntos played on the air in the taberna. I'm masking polka de polka in the ranchera. And Tejanos play at fandangos and fiestas. And there's more than a little polka in music in Texas. There are chapters in history that are unpleasant to talk about, but we can't ignore them. They're part of the story and part of the reason why things are the way they are. If we ignore those chapters, we fail to acknowledge how they've shaped our attitudes and our culture. But by acknowledging those shameful chapters, we can atone for past injustices and start to heal the divisions they brought about and hopefully start to come together as a people. Back around 1830, an actor by the name of Thomas Rice put burnt cork on his face and created a character based on a song and dance he saw being done by a handicapped black sable hand. That was the beginning of blackface minstrelsy. The character he created was Jim Crow. The character would perform a song called Jump Jim Crow that consisted of multiple verses sung in a mocking black dialect and set against an Old English melody. In addition to being a cruel mockery, the song was also an expression of anti-elitism, and for whichever of those reasons, or both, it resonated with the supporters of Andrew Jackson. The song became very popular. Thomas Rice went on to become a wealthy, famous man and inspire hundreds of imitators. And minstrelsy went on to become a form of hateful propaganda. Even more so as the debate over slavery intensified, and even more than that in the aftermath of the Civil War. When art and music are used to spread hatred, the hatred can become ingrained in the culture and become a part of the culture. As years pass and generations pass, and as hopefully the hatred comes to be seen for being the evil that it is, any art or music that was used to spread that hatred can no longer be appreciated as art or entertainment. And it becomes nothing more than a grotesque relic that's only fit to be kept in a museum. That's what happened to a lot of the songs from minstrelsy. The minstrel shows were a vehicle through which a representation of black music was introduced to a large number of non-black Americans. Even as the shows became increasingly weaponized as a form of propaganda, and even as they became increasingly degrading towards African Americans and other minorities, the performers in the shows would compete with one another for what they imagined was authenticity in their representation of black music. So what they were insulting and degrading, they were at the same time idealizing. And over time, their goal became to sound black, or to sound like what in their mind being black sounded like. But the qualities in the music that they idealized, they attributed to the irrelevant characteristic of skin color, rather than to the hard work, passion, and devotion of individual black artists, or the openness at the time of black culture generally. And that's a big part of what racism is, and prejudice right there, is taking away credit or blame from individuals and reassigning that credit or blame to a whole population based on irrelevant criteria like the color of someone's skin or someone's ethnic background. Sadly, that's still part of our world. This is called Thomas Rice and His Traveling Review. They're gathering at the playhouse on the square, and on Main Street there's a murmur of excitement in the air. The people are both because a show that's coming through is Thomas Rice and his traveling. like Thomas Rice and his traveling review. There's speeches by grand eloquent queens and banjos that played their own plantation tunes. Jim Dandy would be there and Lucy Long too with Thomas Rice and his traveling review. It's good, awesome, fun filled with slapstick and puns. The legacy will to the children proud. Good Christians will laugh till their laughs turn to tears. Soon even the devil will be laughing out loud at how Hitler and Tambo and bones, crudely colored by burnt pork and dark freakish bones, will be burned in the marrow of these people who've seen Thomas Rice and his traveling review. Thomas Rice and his traveling review. At this point in the show, I need to make a quick mention of Stephen Foster. Stephen Foster is an important figure in American popular music. One of the first, possibly, arguably the first great American songwriter. He's been, sometimes Stephen Foster's life marks the beginning of, to some historians, the beginning of the American music industry. Stephen Foster wrote some minstrel songs, and they became very popular. Mostly, Stephen Foster wrote parlor songs, which were the sentimental ballads that were popular at the time, that were influenced by European light classical music. Now, Foster biographers and historians also argue that he wrote in a third style. It was a combination of the two. These were sentimentalized, idyllic depictions of slave life in the plantation South. And these songs also became very popular, and these songs were also sung in minstrel shows. Foster apologists argue that these so-called plantation songs depicted slaves in a more humane way, in a more human way, and in a more sympathetic way. But regardless of that, and whatever Stephen Foster's intentions might have been, and we don't really know for sure, by creating an idyllic and sentimentalized representation of slave life in the plantation South, he was wittingly or not contributing to much of the music of the time being a form of racist propaganda. Traditionally, it's held that the blues evolved out of the field hollers and spirituals and African songs of the Mississippi Delta region. But there's an alternate theory that suggests that the blues instead evolved out of black vaudeville, as it was performed in a circuit of theaters in the late 1890s and early 1900s. A guy named Butler May was a popular performer on that circuit. Even though he's barely remembered today, all we have are some old, very grainy, faded newspaper clippings from the black newspapers of the time. But even though he's barely remembered today, he was immensely popular in his lifetime. When he came to town, the theaters would be packed, be lines out into the streets. Butler May was a child prodigy. From an early age, he was sharing the bill with artists like Ma and Pa Rainey and Jelly Roll Morton. And it turned out he was a natural comedian as well. Soon he was headlining his own shows under the name String Beans because he was tall and thin. By the autumn of 1914, Butler May had taken his act up north. He was performing at the Monogram Theater in Chicago, one of the most prestigious venues on the black vaudeville circuit. His signature number was a performance piece about the Titanic. In the piece, he would stand at the piano and sway back and forth and play piano music showing the swaying back and forth, depicting that. And that was all to show the ship rocking on the water, and then he'd slowly sink at the piano to show the ship sinking, and he'd do a big descending scale or something, going down. All the while, he'd be singing about how he was on the Titanic, but he was able to swim to safety because he had elegant movements in his hips with a 20-year guarantee. You know what Elgin was?
What?
Yeah, was. They went out of business a long time ago. Elgin was a watch brand, and the movements are the mechanical parts of a watch. And Elgin watches were advertised as coming with a 20-year guarantee on the movements. So he had Elgin movements with a 20-year guarantee. These hips. So that innuendo that Butler May used after his lifetime, it turns up again and again in the blues, from Robert Johnson all the way up to Buddy Guy in the 1960s. And among musicologists is known as the Elgin movement's metaphor. When Butler May brought his act up north, the northern audiences had never seen anything like him before. He was spontaneous, he improvised much of his act, and he was vulgar. The black press criticized him for being too blue. Blue being a vaudeville term for being vulgar on stage, probably related to the blue laws. And there's some who, coincidentally or not, some consider Butler May to have been the original bluesman. A short aside, essentially the difference here is that this theory is suggesting that the blues started in the cities. It started with vaudeville and then found its way into the country and became the rural Delta blues. And traditionally it's held that the blues started as a rural form and found its way into the city. So my summation. Butler May. One, two, three, four. Montgomery, Alabama, on a hot summer day, just before the sun went down. The kid was playing piano on the back of a train, and a crowd of people gathered round. We heard all a song that didn't seem so old, at the beginning of a story that'd be left untold. And if you listen to some say, you might still know what we played today. The name was Butler May, soon he was touring the South, playing a black vaudeville stage. He was tall and lean, and they called him strength, and his act was all the rage. Wherever he played, he would draw a crowd, because his songs wrote people and found loud. Still the critics wrote in their reviews, the Butler May was good. Some said Butler May may have been playing the blues the way the blues get played today. He lived and died a long time ago, so nobody can really say. They say he was the funniest man alive, but he was hardly more than a kid. Some say Butler May may have invented the blues, but no one knows if he did. No one knows if he did. From Atlanta to Louisville, from Chicago to Harlem, the string is the houses down. He sang the Titanic in a piano log, and he sang Alabama Bound. And when he took the stage, people all agreed he had the kind of moves that were carried. Still the critics wrote in their reviews, the Butler May was good. From Jacksonville, Florida, one November day, there word the Butler May was gone. He was being played through a fraternal lodge when his ritual went wrong. He was just 23, much too young, at the beginning of a song that'd be left unsung. But if you listen, some say you might still know what he played today. Down in Georgia and Florida, he played on the bill with the Radies and Jelly Roll. And up north in Chicago, a mob had gathered on State Street, where there was tributes did the stroll. Some said Butler May have invented the blues, but nobody can really say. Cause he never recorded or published his songs that no one lived to heard him play. They say he was the funniest man alive, and he was hardly more than a kid. Some say Butler May have invented the blues, but nobody knows if he did. Nobody knows if he did. In the years before Butler May, years before W.C. Handy, the composer who was nicknamed the father of the blues, a style appeared that some music writers now call proto-blues. These were ragtime Tin Pan Alley tunes that had evolved out of certain African-American folk songs like Frankie and Johnny and Stack O'Lee. Only a small number of these proto-blues songs have been identified, and the most prolific composer of them was a fellow named Huey Cannon. Huey Cannon was a Tin Pan Alley songwriter. He's best remembered for writing the jazz standard, Bill Bailey, Won't You Please Come Home. Tin Pan Alley was a row of publishing houses in New York City. It was established around 1885 by Irish and Jewish immigrants. And these publishing houses had staff songwriters, and they would churn out songs to be sold as sheet music to theaters and traveling shows. The songs of Tin Pan Alley formed the bulk of what we call the American Songbook. But Huey Cannon came from the Detroit area. He started out playing piano in the saloons of Jackson, Michigan, and lived his life going back and forth there to New York City, Tin Pan Alley. Huey Cannon also probably started out drinking in the saloons of Jackson, Michigan, because he was an alcoholic from an early age. And sadly, that led to an early death at the age of 35. This would have been around 1910. Gotta stay hydrated. Now do you hear that old piano rolling out a ragtime melody from the bars where Huey Cannon used to play, to the rhythm of their shots of gin and whiskey going down, the good common song that still gets sung today, where the rounders and the railroad men, the gamblers and the whores told their stories from the darker side of life. And a kid at the piano heard a drunk at the bar describe how he'd been tossed out by his wife. Now up on Tin Pan Alley, Huey Cannon's got a son, and Mrs. Bailey's rolling all night long. She had a purple and her man a pair of walking shoes. A million minstrel loves a tune of Cannon's blues, and it's 60 miles, Detroit to Toledo. You can go that distance anywhere you choose. And there's a lot of men who fall going sideways down there. Many minstrel knows the tune of Cannon's blues. From Jackson to Manhattan, Huey Cannon made his name, writing music for the publishers to sell. Some songs he wrote for parlors, and some songs he wrote for shows, and some nights he spent locked in a holding cell. 'Cause Huey Cannon had been drinking hard from the time he was a kid, and as a man his drinking drove away his wife. Oh, he drank away the songs he wrote and the money that he made. Then at 35 he drank away his life. But back on Tin Pan Alley, Huey Cannon had a song where a widow mourned a man who had done her wrong. Fast living had brought up with him Now many minstrel knows the tune of Huey Cannon's blues. And it was 35 years from Detroit to Toledo, going by the way of pillows and booze. And there's a lot of men fun going sideways down there road. Many minstrel knows the tune of Huey Cannon's blues. Yeah, many minstrel knows the tune of Huey Cannon's blues. Won't you come home, Bill Bailey? Won't you come home? She mowed the whole night long. I'll do the cooking, honey, and I'll pay the rent. I know I've done you wrong. Remember that rainy night, dear? I threw you out, but with what a fine to come. Why did I stop playing? Yes, and let it shine. Won't you please come? Well, this next song is about record collecting.
I think,
And,
I'm not sure if they heard you.
And early rock and roll. By the early 1900s, a phonograph was a household item. But records were a popular form of entertainment throughout the 20th century. Eventually, records gave way to 8-track tapes, and cassette tapes, and CDs. And CDs gave way to digital downloads, and guess what? Now we're back to vinyl records again. Time flies. Everything just comes around full circle. But, you know, this song's kind of about the record collectors, or the folks who get the records not just for entertainment value, but because they're worth something, or they hope they're worth something. A prize find for one of these guys would be a Sun Session 45. Those were the singles put out by Elvis on Sun Records before he was signed to RCA in 1955. So if you find one of those in your basement, a little 45 with a big hole in the middle that says Sun and Elvis is on it, first of all, don't throw it away. Second of all, take good care of it. It's worth a few $100, maybe a couple thousand, maybe. But most of all, listen to it, because it's probably really good. It's called Sun Session 45. Don't want to forget the slapback in this one.
Yeah.
If that's even slapback at this point. Concept.
1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4.
She said, what you spending all the money for? I was dusty old record from the second-hand store. She said, that's alright, mama, don't criticize. I've come home with a real good prize. From now on, you can ride behind. Listening to a Sun Session 45. They say it's worth maybe 15 grand. So put your best dress on, take my hand. Turn up the volume, turn out the light. There's gonna be good rockin' tonight. We're gonna buzz like bees in a hive. Listening to a Sun Session 45. Listening to a Sun Session 45. Listening to a Sun Session 45. Holy smoke and sings alive. Listening to a Sun Session 45. Oh, well, me and the devil went for a spin. A number came up, now we'll be cashing in. Remember cousin Karen used to really rock. She was listening to the Beatles on a book and block. Our ship's coming, it's finally right. Listening to a Sun Session 45. Things are looking up, the future's looking fine. It won't matter if the sun won't shine. If you're rockin' and roll to a bluegrass tune underneath the blue Kentucky moon. The bags are packed for a scenic drive. Listening to a Sun Session 45. Oh, the moon of Kentucky, keep on shining. Shine on the one that's gone and proved untrue. The moon of Kentucky, keep on shining. Shine on the one that's gone and left me blue. Well, it was on a moonlit night, the stars were shining bright. They whispered from my eye, yeah, I'll never say goodbye. Oh, the moon of Kentucky, keep on shining. Shine on the one that's gone and said goodbye. Well, days turn to weeks, time will tell. Some things in life are too good to sell. Over and on. They did the milk car book all night long. They would do much better than just getting by. Listen to sunset, what a buy. Listen to sunset, what a buy. Listen to sunset, what a buy. Duke Ellington once said all music is popular music. I wonder if, from today's perspective, maybe you might say all music is, he said all music is folk music. Excuse me, I wonder if from today's perspective you might say all music is popular music. Because folk has become the name of just another commercial genre, like country and rock. A lot of the distinctions between these genres doesn't have very much to do with music at all. A lot of it has more to do with what kind of accent you have, what part of the country you're from, class, ethnicity, education. None of that stuff has anything to do with music. Popular music implies the music of the people, the music of all the people, the music that tells our stories and marks the events in our lives. And in that, there are no distinctions or labels. It's our popular music. Some years ago at a show, a woman requested that I play the song Stardust, the old standard by Hoagy Carmichael. After the show, she told me that back during World War II, when she was a child, or when she was a teenager, she and her brother would go out dancing to the big bands. The last song of the night, the band would play Stardust, and her brother would always save that dance for her. Then he was off to war to fight on the Italian front, and he never came back. And to that day, from that day on, she always requested Stardust in his memory. The song is called Last Dance of Stardust. The band was playing Stardust as they danced on the floor. When the dance was over, off to war. The next day she was over here and he was over there. It was a last dance to Stardust that they shared. She read the letter that he sent as he marched towards home. She read the letter saying he was never coming home. She prayed that there was some mistake, that somehow he was spared, but it was a last dance to Stardust that they shared. Last dance to Stardust, vivid in her memory. A last dance to Stardust that haunts reverie, and the sound of winds and violins will always fill the air of a last dance to Stardust that they share. Now people come into this world and people pass away, but the music that they make for an eternity like a ripple on the ocean, like a true love once declared, like the last dance to stardust that they shared. Last dance to stardust, vivid in her memory. Last dance to stardust that haunts her reverie. And the sound of winds and violins will always fill the air. Of a last dance to stardust that they share. And she said to me, this memory I can't let disappear. She asked me, won't you play that song from way back when I long to hear? Never take me back once more to 1943. And his last dance to stardust with me. His last dance to stardust with me. Sometimes I wonder why I spend the lonely night dreaming of a song. The melody haunts my reverie, and I am once again with you. Though I dream in vain, in my heart it will remain my stardust melody, the memory of love's refrain. Thank you. Popular music tells our stories and marks the events in our lives, not just global events like World War II, but our everyday experiences. By sharing those stories and those experiences, individuals come to identify as a people, as a culture, whether it's from sharing the stories of their heroes, or retelling the stories their heroes told, or collectively atoning for past injustices. So the voices of storytellers, of artists and musicians play an important part in shaping our identity as a people. And in a country as divided as ours is, we need those voices to remind us that there is an American culture, an American identity. It's in the stories and experiences that we share. There's a tendency to try to stifle or control those voices. There are politicians and religious leaders who want to determine what goes into the stories and who hears them. There are business leaders who want to keep the arts subordinate and subservient to business interests. And there are independent entrepreneurs who want to further their own ambitions and further the careers of friends and family members by keeping other voices from being heard. Blind Alfred Reed was a street performer from West Virginia in the early 1900s. He was a singer, a songwriter, a fiddle player, and a preacher. He became popular around his hometown of Princeton, and in 1927 he was invited by Ralph Peer to participate in what would turn out to be the historic Bristol Sessions, where Jimmie Rodgers and the Carter family would be discovered. Alfred Reed traveled to Bristol and he recorded some sides, and they were well received. And he went on to record several more times over the next few years, and he attained a certain degree of regional success. Some of his songs are still sung today. But then the Depression hit. The record companies were no longer able to support developing rural acts, and Alfred Reed returned to being a street performer in his hometown of Princeton, West Virginia, until 1937, when the town passed a new ordinance prohibiting street music. Some years later, Alfred Reed died, and according to some sources, he died of starvation. Now, other sources, and hopefully the better sources, say that that's an urban legend, and it's not true, and we hope that's correct. But in any case, by denying him his passion and his livelihood, weren't they metaphorically starving him anyway? Weren't they starving those around him from hearing his unique voice? We're going to end this show with one last song called Blind Alfred Reed. We want to thank you very much for coming out tonight. We hope you've enjoyed the program. Anybody wants to... Thank you again to the Cultural Council, the Stoughton Cultural Council, for supporting this and making this happen. And thank you again to Stoughton Library for hosting this. And wants to say hi or talk afterwards, we'd love to talk to you, meet you. Lee likes to take this one fast. We'll see if my fingers can keep up tonight. I don't know. Blind Alfred Reed.
Ready?
Yeah. 1, 2, 3, 4. Down in a corner in a West Virginia town, a man took out a fiddle. People gathered round. The depression had ended, but times were still tough. Jobs were hard to find, and they didn't pay enough. People were struggling, they had miles to feed. They could still spare some coins for Blind Alfred. Alfred Reed was born blind. He had to learn to survive by playing music and doing a little preaching on the side. And that's all he needed. Kept buying life, taking care of his family, 5 kids and his wife. Times were often hard, they were seldom in need, but he paid for the songs played by Blind Alfred. Blind Alfred Reed played his songs on the corner. That musician before had been doing it for so long. He always had a way to keep food on the table, as long as he was able to give someone a song. Then in 1927, down in Bristol, Virginia, came word that Victor Records was looking for musicians, fiddle players and singers. Converged on that town, and they laid down the roots of the American sound. Among those who took part, planting that seed, were Carters, Jimmy Rogers, and Blind Alfred. And in 1937, back in that West Virginia town, a new law was passed that busking would no longer be allowed. That's what the business owners wanted, and they got to have their say. Talk music on the streets, throw their customers away. And the politician thought property values would go up. People didn't see a blind man collect money in a cup. So others thought that they alone ought to have a final word, and which musician should be listened to, and which one should not be heard. We were all consumed with hunger for power and greed, and that brought starvation to Blind Alfred. Blind Alfred Reed played his songs on the corner. Night musicians before him have been doing it for so long. He always had a way to keep food on the table, as long as he was able to give someone a song.
Roxana, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much. Wow. Great playing, great singing, great stories.
Thank you.
Join us in 2 weeks for Jumpin' Juba. You'll feel some great blues music. And thank you for coming. And of course, they're here to chat. So enjoy.